Coalition of Theaters of Color was informed by one of the council members, a council member, Inez Dickens, that the Department of Finance was asked to defund 4 members of the coalition. Those members are New Heritage Theater Group, 46-year-old, the oldest black not-for-profit theater in New York City, headed by myself. The Hadley Players, headed by 95-year-old member Gertrude Jeanette, over 30 years old. The Negro Ensemble Company, 42 years old, now headed by Charles Weldon, and the Paul Robeson Theater in Brooklyn, headed by Dr. Josephine English, who is 85 years old. And when that information was shared, that they wanted to defund 4 theater members of the Coalition of Theaters of Color without any conversation with the membership of the Theaters of Color, we were upset. I was extremely upset because the reason for the defunding was that those 4 theaters were no longer qualified to be members of the coalition. And so when that information was just shared with us, where did that come from? Members of the coalition, the executive members of the coalition was never spoken to, nor were the members supposedly in default spoken to, but you've made a decision to cut an approximation of almost $240,000 going to those 4 members. And that is crucial and critical to our survival.
And by this time each year, we're well on our way in terms of receiving notices about funding so that we can carry on the work that we do. And here we are at the end of September, and they haven't even made a decision about our funding. And they voted on this back in June.
It just amazed me that this came out of the clear blue sky, that they would name 4 theaters to say, these theaters we're going to cut these theaters out of the coalition. So we were adamant about, how can you come and cut theaters out of what we put together?
We're not one of the 4 theaters, but it affects me just as much, almost just as much. Sure, the money makes a difference. But to have anybody cut, that means anyone can be cut at any time, as far as I'm concerned. So that's why we're looking out for each other, and we're very concerned. But the good part is that there is promise of dialogue with the caucus, and they said that they will be reaching out to us. I'm one of the officers of the Coalition of Theaters for Color. I'm a vice chair, and we will be reaching out to them if we haven't heard from them, you know, in a little less than a week.
I thought that Councilwoman Inez Dickens, Councilman Leroy Comrie, Councilman Barron, and Councilman Al Van were very key in making sure that this would go no further. And also Councilman Jackson, I thought, handled his coalition, his caucus, in a way that respected everybody, even though it was obvious that there was a lot of dissension in the room amongst themselves.